Welcome, Dnb20, brand new episode, and I'm joined by DJ Twista. What's happening, mate? You good?
Easy, mate. How's things, man?
Yeah, good, mate. Good. Good to have you on the podcast. Have a nice little chat.
Yeah, it's all good.
Do you want to let people know who you are and what you're about for those that don't know?
So I'm DJ Twista. Been around for a little while now. We're like 20 years plus now in the drum and bass, jungle, old school scene, rave scene kind of thing. So been a DJ, producer, been on lots of different radio stations over the years. On the side as well, I also design a lot of artwork for all of the events, record labels, all the music things that are involved. I've been doing that sort of in tandem, in parallel, for the same amount of time really. So I've been there for over 20 years now. Been involved in fingers in a lot of pies. Yeah, seen a lot of things come and go. A lot of things change. That's how I get to meet you. Met you when you was but a little whippersnapper.
Still lanky, but just younger.
He was lanky but skinnier. Skinnier, a little bit more hair, less grey. So what was that? Charge FM? Yes. Sounds Zone Records in Basildon.
Fucking hell.
Yeah, man.
How many years ago was that now, though?
We're pushing what, 18 years maybe? Something like that.
It's gone bloody quick. I mean, let's fucking get into the pirate radio side of things. I mean, how fucking good. Like, there's a lot of people listening to this that would never have experienced proper pirate radio. And I mean, you've got more experience with pirate radio than what I have. And you just, you can't replicate that these days. No. I don't know.
Where I started out, we're talking 97, I started, right? On a garage station. I used to be under a different name called Mr. Wilson, which is my surname. Right?
Such a garage name.
I know, it's such a garage name. Right? Do you know what? Do you know how that come about? I'll tell you how this come about. I kind of don't even know why I rolled with it, because I still don't like it to this day. Obviously I like my name, but I hate using that as a thing. Like, basically, I went to I started off working at a printers in Wandsworth Road. Yeah. And two guys, Dagan and Chico from Upfront FM 99.3.
Chico? What? Chico time?
No, not Chico time. They come in and we printed their flyers, and I've done their artwork for them. And I was like, I want to get on the station. They give me a graveyard shift, midnight till 2 on a Thursday morning, Thursday night, Friday morning. Yeah. I lived in Northwest London in Edgware. That's the top of the Northern Line. Yeah. And this was like Crystal Palace. So I'm like, driving down there, brought my mate with me, big up Anthony. The guy taught me to mix, actually. So we went down there, midnight show. Done the first show. I didn't have a name. I didn't know what to call myself.
Yeah. So you had a show lined up and you didn't have a name.
Yeah. I put a mixtape, and they knew. They were like, "Yeah, you can mix. You're cool. Do it." And I got down there, and I was like, "I can't host. I don't know what to say." I was nervous. So my mate spoke on the mic, and he didn't know, and he just went, "Yeah, big up the DJ, blah blah blah." And then D and Chico come down, so they wanted to kind of check out what I was doing, if I weren't fucking about in the studio and whatnot. So they've come in, and they're like, "You gotta have a name." So we were quickly on the spot. They're like, "What's your surname?" And I was Wilson. Right, yeah, Mr. Wilson, like that. And I was like, right, let's just roll with it. And all of a sudden, that was me. So that's where it started for me. Done a lot of garage things, here and there. Played at Liberty, big up Martin Lana, giving my first ever booking, Club Coliseum. Trevor Sun City, Milton. A lot of people these days know Milton. He's involved with fingers in a lot of pies and events these days. Yeah. He used to run Climax, involvement in Able these days and stuff like that. But yeah, all these guys back in the day gave me sort of step in. a movement into the sort of garage scenes, and then lo and behold, sort of a couple of years later, you know, was more into my rave music, my drum and bass, even my happy hardcore. A couple of years before that, even still, and then sort of started getting more involved in old school rave, like early '90s stuff as well. Started out on Eruption. Big up Alan, all the Demolition Crew, all them guys on Eruption as well. Back in the day, met a lot of good friends on that station, and then went on to Origin. Yeah, Easy M, Mr. T, all the family on there. There's so many guys I've met from there that are still very, very, very close friends and my lifelong friends. Yeah. And then same time I moved to Essex, Charge FM. That's where I met you. Yeah. What are we talking about here? What, 2001, maybe 2002? I'm
trying to think how old I was when I first went on there, because I was already on there when you came down and joined, wasn't I?
Yeah.
So I must have been, what was I? 16, 17 when I first went on there. So I must not have been on there long before you joined the station. Maybe, because it was before I was working in the record shop, wasn't it? We met. And then obviously that was when Trust, Greg was at the record shop, and it was there after. Was it through Greg that you got the link to come on the station?
I don't really know. I can't even remember. I think I might have just gone into the shop. Yeah. And just started speaking. I want to get on the station, blah, blah, blah. And then you just start chatting. And that happened. And and then big up Slick, Harry, all them guys.
Legends.
90.8 gang, yeah. There's a lot of faces and a lot of people we still speak to now. You know, we will still.
Yeah. Well, this is what you were saying. Like, you go on these pirate radio stations and you do make lifelong friends on there.
Yeah, because you've got an association with someone that just feels exactly the same way about music that you do. Yeah. And I think the thing, particularly being in Essex, there was only 1 or 2 record shops you could go to. Yeah. And like 90% of the people in charge all went to the same record shop, which was Sounds Only Basildon. So big up Paul Rogers. Yeah. Big up Ross. Who was the other guy that worked there with a cat? And he was
Danny. That was Danny.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, he always used to remember what I liked, the sort of stuff I liked. But yeah.
Oh, mate, they knew how to work us. Jesus Christ, did they know how to work us?
I was money left, right and centre. You know, you was out at the rave the night before and then in the record shop the next morning. Yeah. A little bit worse for wear. And just like, oh, I remember that tune, that's a bad tune, yeah, I'm going to buy it.
And you weren't just in there to buy records either, were you? It was basically, it was a social event. Like, I would spend hours in the record shop, like, just hours, just speaking to people.
Off to go and get McDonald's or whatever, back into the shop, all eating it on the side.
Putting off other customers as they're trying to pick their favourite tape pack that they want to buy, and we're sitting there eating Big Macs, talking like we own the place, which, to be fair, it got to a point where we wasn't far off. We could have paid for it, that's for certain, the amount of bloody records we bought. And I ended up working there. I was in there so much.
The amount of money that used to just roll out of my pocket.
Oh, God.
I used to get proper bashing from the missus at the time. She's like, I was like, how much you spent? I'd be like, 30 quid, and that's really, I'd spent 60. And it's like,
every bit of money I got, and I didn't have that much money, went on vinyl. Literally all of it.
And you know, you've still got these things today, you know, like I've got all of it in my old days loft. Yeah. And I hope it's in a good condition still. I worry about it sometimes. People talk to me, oh, you got all these vinyls, and it's like, yeah, they're in the loft, and it's like heat rises, and people tell me, don't ever leave the records in the loft, and you think,
Russian roulette.
Yeah, but I hope, fingers crossed.
No, it could be worse. I mean, as you can see behind me, I've got one of my...
I just noticed that as you said that, yeah.
One of my Technics, right? So they're Mark 5Gs, the limited edition ones, yeah? Obviously, they don't make them anymore, do they? Pioneer have bought out Technics and this, that, and the other. And there was damp in my studio. The studio I'm sitting in now, I had a bit of a problem. I bought it and I had to sort it all out, and it was a real big fucking ball ache. and there must have been moisture in the air in here. It's got to the deck, and because they're graphite, and the top of them are graphite, they bubbled up, and they're actually disintegrating.
Mate, I've got mine second, and I've got the 1200s, the silver ones.
Yeah, always like them.
White cases, yeah, and I've not even opened them. I don't even. They're at my mum's. They're at my mum's, the records, and I'm like, I hope they're in good condition. But like that's my decks right there.
Yeah,
because I've just moved house, so this is my studio. This is like my gonna be studio. So everything's in boxes. I've tidied it up because it's a mess. There's bags everywhere and all sorts, just bags of cables on the floor. But yeah, at some point I'm waiting for some bits and pieces to set this up, and I can't wait, mate.
Yeah,
I'm jealous of what you've got right there, even with your bubbled up deck.
Yeah, it makes a massive difference, I must admit, and yeah, you know. So just looking behind you in the picture frames, what you got there? Are they just legendary flyers, or are they flyers that you've done?
No, I wish they were. So basically, these are flyers from a rave called Helter Skelter.
Yeah.
I started raving New Year's Eve 1995 into 96.
Yeah.
And started going to these in 96, these Helter Skelters. They were in Milton Keynes. These were designed by a guy called Pez. And basically, he was my inspiration as a student in art college.
Okay.
He's an airbrush guy, so I don't know if you can see it. Look, I'll show you. I'm going to end up wrecking the place. Some of you can see that. So basically, I'm going to get a reflection here. This is him. He's the artist. He's done all of this with an airbrush. He's so creative. In a weird way, his mind's more messed up than anything, because you've got to be so crazy to think of these things. But at the same time, that's what I sort of pinpointed. That was what my inspiration was. I even done college art. My college final piece was based around his art. Yeah. So that's what I always wanted to do. Moved on to doing that, at college, done sort of graphic design, art A-levels, that kind of stuff. And then got a job, as I mentioned earlier, at printers in Wandsworth Road. Yeah. They designed a lot of flyers for people. I learned from them. Carried on, worked at various other different printers and stuff, and it kind of didn't work out in the long run. Rave promoters are notoriously tight, or notoriously tight, back then at least anyway. I'm not naming any names, but so were the printers, to be fair, because they ended up knocking me. I ended up going bust, and I ended up getting all their clients and whatnot, and I hope the taxman's not listening right now. But yeah, that started my sort of graphic design career for doing flyers, and I've done that for quite a few years. I still do it now. Here and there, not so many people. It's not my full-time job. I'm a graphic designer, retouch manager, involved in retouching stuff for a company in London as my day job. But then at the weekends, obviously, when I can, and for a select few clients who have been good to me over the years and whatnot, and I enjoy doing their work, I still do. I still do their artwork, their flyers. We can mention a few names. Breaking Science, Slamming Vinyl, do Westfest Transmission, Jungle Mania. Do bits and pieces here for innovation. Trying to think, I don't want to leave people out. There's people I do. Over the years, I've pretty much done every, and I'm not blowing my own trumpet. It just has come about that way. I've pretty much done an event.
It wasn't just event flyers though, was it? You also did vinyl sleeve artwork.
Yeah, mate. I've done vinyl artwork.
Ones that pop up in my head that I know that you could probably correct me if I'm wrong. Trouble on Vinyl, Grid Recordings, Renegade Hardware.
Done little things like Chasing Status' first vinyl release. I done artwork. It was the 2020 Future Cut remix they did.
Right.
that was on Renegade Hardware. It was called Chronicles Volume 3. 3 skulls on it and a book.
I think I actually own that vinyl
Yeah.
somewhere. I'm pretty sure I've got it. I've probably got quite a few of yours.
Paranoia EP. I did.
Yes.
Geezer with a gang like that.
Yeah, I remember that one.
Yeah. That was, yeah. There's just some artworks like that. I just remember when, you know, good old days in vinyl when you could do stuff like that. Who else did I do some bits for? I've done all sorts of things. Obviously, done stuff for Modified Motion, Dynamic Audio. Do you know what? I even done a triple vinyl album artwork for Deep Jungle Records recently. They're probably the only people that are really, really, really rolling out the vinyl at the minute.
Yeah.
Big up Harmony. Yeah, the jungle vibe on that sort of thing. You wouldn't even understand the units that they're doing at the minute. It's like I didn't even know it existed, brother. I'm into jungle. It's so popular. If you're into your jungle, yeah, go and check out Deep Jungle.
Nice.
Some proper heads music there.
Yeah.
Your old Dillingers, your old Scotty, Sub Nations. There's all the harmony stuff. There's some proper tunes there, yeah.
Oh, nice. People go and check that out. Go and check that out, definitely.
I'm swaying right off the subject, but yeah, with you know, vinyls and stuff. Yeah, I did. It's so nice. Even some of my own releases on vinyl, I've done the artwork for, which I'm proud of.
Oh,
they're in a frame somewhere. I've got to put up still, but
yeah.
Nice to have done that, man. But yeah, you had a million vinyls over the years.
Do you know what,
bro? I'm going to ask you a question. How do you feel when you look at your vinyl stuff now? Because I remember when you got your first release.
Yeah, mate,
you were, yes, bro. You were so like.
Yeah. I wish I had it to hand to actually put out, but I'm not sure where it is. But
you know what? I'm going to put again. You said to me earlier, you were, this ain't about you. This is about talking to the guest. I'm going to say something because I don't think people give you enough credit. Right? We're talking vinyls. First releases of vinyls on Good for Nothing. G-Friend, yeah?
Yeah.
Go.
Yeah.
Yeah? Who else are we talking here? I mean, early artists were on the label. We had Mackie.
Yeah.
We had New Elements. Was it New Elements or was that on the other label we did?
That was on the other label we did. Obviously, we did the bigger project. But Shifter, Tron and Sensei, they were part of Bluefoot. I was trying to push Prestige as well. Yeah. I was trying to push his first ever thing. He was actually sending tunes that we was trying to push, because originally I started up Good for Nothing with Stuart Rascal. When I worked in Rascal's Records, formerly Sound Zone, we sat down and we come up with this thing. Obviously, I was involved in DnB and he knew how to do a record label. So we sort of come together, and it never really got off the ground in the beginning. It, for whatever reason, it didn't amount to anything. Stuart had other things. He had other things going on. He didn't follow through with it because he had other commitments and whatnot. And it was like, okay, well, I'm going to go forward with this. Yeah. And I went forward. And who else was there? I tried to get a Font Case, which back then was a Dose tune, released. I had Sensei single tracks I was going to try and get released.
I think the point what I was getting at is your foresight and understanding of what a good tune was, and being linked with people that wanted to give you these kind of music. I think that's an accolade that people don't know enough about you personally. I'm not sounding like I'm brown nosing you, but like I think people generally do need to know that you were sort of you were early days, and look at the headliners that you picked out.
Or I got lucky. Or I got lucky.
At the same time, you think, I mean, fair enough, but then everyone gets lucky at some point through their career. But yeah, I just like to point out for people watching, I think people need to understand these things as well. You deserve a lot of credit.
brilliant to see as well, to see some of these guys go from starting out to what they've become is like, Jesus Christ, fair play. And you know, Gov's a good example of that. I thought he was, in the beginning, he was absolutely smashing. His tunes were sick. And that's not a was because they're not now, because they're more sick now than ever. And he's grown into a big, massive artist. And the same with Mackie. He's blown up into, you know, fuck me, Mackie's smashing it. And who else?
Arguably the biggest artist in drum and bass, arguably.
I wanted to sign an upgrade tune called Gunshots, which back then wasn't necessarily the right timing. That tune got released about 2 years ago.
Really?
2 years ago that came out, and I tried to get it released on vinyl maybe 10 years ago or something.
You know something? Just we're gonna. I think I get the feeling that this interview is just gonna go from one tangent off to another.
Yeah.
Like, you mentioned Upgrade, right? I was watching his stories on Insta the other day, and he went. Oh, I've got a folder of stuff that I've not released, and I've done anything really. And he went, oh, every producer makes a whole bunch of tunes, and then he went, these are the ones that didn't make it. Yeah. And he was looking through to Brav, and I'm sitting there going, are you mad? Like, that's a tune. Like, and he's like, nah. Now, someone else uses the same sample, I'm not using that tune. It's like, change the fucking sample, bro.
You know, the funny thing about that is, it was me that used the same
sample.
No,
I know, it was about
I didn't even know this tune exists. Obviously, I found the sample and used it in the tune, and he must have heard it, and it put him off. And I said, to be fair, mate, like, your tune is 1,000 times better than what I put out.
Roller as well, and I was just like, you know what? That's all right. Yeah. And I did think that as well. I was like, that's the shit. That's quite funny, mate.
But he is definitely like, you know, he does seem like that. I'll say to him, Jesus Christ, this particular, a different tune, this particular tune is fucking amazing. And he'll be, no, I don't know, man. But I was having a conversation with Slips about this, and it's like, as producers, I don't think you're ever bloody happy. You're always feeling like you can do better than what you've done. And I get the feeling that a lot of us don't think any of our stuff's good enough. No. You know, I don't know, man. I don't know if it's good enough and stuff. And it's that constant search for perfection that doesn't exist.
Yeah, because I mean, and the problem is even more so right now. Yeah. You ain't even got a chance to test it in a club. Like, no. And this, do you know what? This is something we spoke about recently as well. Is like, again, fucking mate, we're swaying from point to point. My brain goes.
There's no set course.
No, there's no set course. We like the sat nav's gone right out the window, mate.
Tom, bear left. All right, we'll go right instead.
We're ending up in the lakes, mate. We were talking about this a while ago. It's like lockdown and the lack of events for DJs to go and release go and test music out, let alone release music out. Has caused a massive problem. From what I see, there's a lack of direction in where people want to go with their music right now.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong, I'm not knocking anyone's music, and there's some really good tunes coming out. And it's annoying me. I'm getting stuff sent, and I'm like, I want to play this. I want to play this. I want to play this in the rave. I want to watch that go off, and it's not going to happen. And it's really annoying, and I think these tunes are getting wasted a bit.
Yeah, definitely.
There's a big point of that. There's multiple points in this conversation about music getting wasted, but at the same time, you need to give people music to listen to.
Yes.
You're getting cold in there, or are you sitting?
I'm I'm getting a bit warm. I'm actually turning the aircon down, you know. Yeah. But I was actually having a conversation with Slips about this, and it was, there's some tunes that may not be the best produced, and may not be technically the most musical tracks, but they catch a vibe. And to find out that they catch a vibe, you need to play them live. So I was sitting there thinking, how many tunes are not actually going to be getting released that could have been the biggest tune of the year, as per the vibe that's caught off the back of it, which isn't going to happen now.
Yeah. I totally agree. I mean, like we've spoken about this, about the releases for our own label, and it's like, how far do we go with this? And like, you know, we've looked at sort of how can we sort of, not in a way that any music's wasted, and I don't mean this in a sort of, in that term, but we need to somehow sort of re-energize the music that's come out this year.
Yeah.
Across everything. Everyone does, you know, like all these Spotify playlists that we've spoken about recently and stuff like that. I think there's so much opportunity for music to not hit the target audience right now.
Yeah.
At the same time, there couldn't be more people searching for music to listen to because of lockdown, and you still struggle to get it heard.
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm saying? There's a massive sort of, there's two sides to the coin to this. I mean,
It's hard. Everything else sort of revolves around the raves, which
wouldn't be there. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's difficult to take that away from a particular style of music that is, you know, 90% rave, 10% everything else. It's having a bit of a detrimental effect, and people are finding it hard to adjust.
Is it though? I mean, I'd love to know. I mean, I know a close friend of mine. I've spoken about him. I'm not going to mention his name, but I've spoken to you about him a number of times. He works with a very reputable house label, and he's told me the music has sold or streamed enormous amounts more than it would normally.
I mean, there's an example of what you're saying.
Yeah.
Is house the same as drum and bass?
I mean, I'm just using that as an example of, because of lockdown.
Right, yeah.
There's a need for things to happen more. I mean, I listen to music all day, every day anyway, but I'm probably listening to it a lot more, at least 2-3 hours a day more than I would.
Yeah.
With lockdowns in place, because you're at home, you're doing what you know.
With that being said, then, if you're listening to obviously more music and stuff like that, are you finding it easier or more difficult to discover new artists? Or are you going for the go-to guys that you know that you like? Whereas what I mean by that is, if you see somebody in a rave play a particular tune and you've not heard of the guy that's made the tune, all of a sudden you're looking at the rest of their back catalogue going, who's this guy? Kind of take that a little bit away, and you're then in the open market trying to search Spotify for something to listen to. The chances of you discovering that same guy are going to be very slim, because unless they're part of the algorithms, they're never going to pop up and you're never going to get to hear them.
I mean, I think you kind of, there's definitely a lot more music. There's definitely a lot more output from people, by far. That's goes without saying. I think everyone's agreeing that the amount of music that certain artists are putting out is just ridiculous. Like yourself, you know, even just your general sort of go-to labels are putting out much more music than they would normally.
Yeah.
And now, whether that's a simple case of that just because everyone's got time to make music, or because they're also trying to earn money for people who are not working because of the lack of the rave scene and stuff like that. I think that's a double-edged sword. You know, one of them was just like, there's both of those sides are a valid point to that conversation. However, I also think, as you said, new artists and things are still struggling because the bigger artists have got more output. There's less chance for the smaller guy to get involved and get heard. I definitely think there's a lack of Spotify playlists. There's definitely a lack of avenues to hear the music in one place, unless you listen to the new guy on the block or whatever, his new set or his new stream on live, you know, on Facebook Live or whatever. You're not really hearing that new music, and obviously you've got to check that guy out to hear him.
Yeah,
you got to know who you're looking for to hear him. I think there's a lack of just that overall, because there's no rave to hear that random tune you've never heard before. It's still difficult to find that new track. I go out and listen to so many different musics, and on most Mondays or Tuesdays I'm trying to find something new to listen to.
Yeah.
And you can't, because unfortunately the Spotify playlists are backed by all the major labels, so you're hearing the same 20 tunes all the time. That annoys the hell out of me. And and then there's not enough input, I think, from the mid-level labels or even the low-level labels to get that new music out there to the wider audience, other than their normal audience, which would always come to them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is. Yeah, it's. And as you said before about the output is up. Obviously, there's only so many minutes in the day that you're going to listen to music, and if your go-to guys are putting out a hell of a lot more music, the chances are you're going to take up more of the time listening to more of that said artist's stuff, which before they would do less, which would then open up the market to more people. You kind of only got X amount of space to be able to listen to what it is. And if that's taken up more so by the artists that are more, sort of up there than the guys that are down here, the chances are how often you're going to go down there to check out more stuff. If you've got enough up here to listen to keep you entertained, it's very, very bloody difficult. And I don't think no one knows what's right to do and what's wrong to do, because nobody knows what the fuck's going on in the world. Like, it's crazy.
You look at this, like, I mean, I as I said, I listen to all kinds of music, and you've got the likes of Subfocus and Wilkinson and Dimension, proper top level drum and bass artists. Festival acts, headline, top level. They're teasing all their album tracks right now. They're happy to do that because they're getting the streams. They'll get the streams no matter what. They'll earn their money from it, regardless of what they can play in a club or a festival or whatever. And then, you've got all these other guys, mid-level, output is just through the roof. They're really trying. They're forcing. Forcing is probably a bit of a harsh word, but they're pushing music through. Now, whether the quality control is there on that music, that's one question. Or if it's just people are being super creative because they've got the time, that's another question. Which I kind of think that's the way it is at the minute. Yeah. And then you've got other guys that are holding their music. Yes. I know a couple of people. There's a particular one or two people. I probably shouldn't even. I'm not going to say.
Yeah.
But they were due to drop an album last year, I think, and it didn't. It got held off, and then they were due to drop it early this year, and they didn't because the virus come about.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting there going, that album is hugely anticipated, and I know that they're not going to drop it. It might even be a whole nother year before that comes out. Yeah. And it's like, so what one's the right one? Because if they're holding an album off for a year, maybe even 2 years, what music are they writing in between that?
Yeah. And what's going to happen with the music that we do now? Is it going to change, evolve into something else? Like what?
And this goes back to what I was just saying, is there's no direction, because you're not getting a crowd reaction, you're not getting a popularity contest of what music's working, what people like. So at the minute, no one has a physical direction of where to go. Like you get your trends in music at the minute, and then it's like, oh, everyone's using that sound, or everyone's using or whatever they're doing. That ain't happening. But at the same time, I don't see that much prolific music being written. And I'm sorry if anyone takes offense to me saying that.
Or like you say, it is being written, but it's not being shared because they feel the time is not right to be sharing it.
There you go. I mean, I don't know. I don't hear a game-changing tune right now.
Yeah, because, and it could be partly just because there is no game at the minute.
Well, that's what I'm saying. So where does this end? Where does it?
I'll give Boris a text after the podcast. I'll say, Boris, what's the deal with this? Come on, we need to sort this out now. It's going a bit too far.
We
need some direction.
we don't need foghorn. We need goat horn music. I don't know. We need something. Like,
Yep, I'll go out and buy 10 goats and I'll do a symphony and that'll be what it is.
Or some shit like that. I don't know. Fuck, what knows?
I'll be known as Complex the Goat Guy and I'll grow a massive big beard and that'll be my thing. That's my new niche. I'm going to do that now. Big beard, Complex the Goat Guy. Yep, I'll have a big, like, what is it? No, not a staff. What's the thing they hold? I don't know, a big stick.
Be careful how you're doing that.
I don't know what I was doing there.
We'll start downhill skiing soon.
Mate, fucking, I struggle walking, let alone doing anything else. Bloody hell. So,
so your football antics, yeah.
Oh, mate, don't. Honestly, I'm kidding myself thinking I'm fucking 18 years old still, and I'm really not. Really not. So going back to pirate radio, I feel that's something that we can talk about that not many other people can experience these days in the same way. I mean, we met on Charge FM, but you said you've played on other stations previously. I've played on other stations, some of them the same as yourself. And I'm pretty certain, obviously without naming names and maybe not even a particular station involved, between us, we've got some mad stories. What's the craziest thing that's happened during a show that you've done?
Oh, mate, I mean, the weirdest thing I think I can say was on a garage station. I was in South London, late 90s.
Yeah.
And we're talking squats. We're talking in a dodgy squat.
Yeah.
I think it was like Crystal Palace or somewhere like that, or somewhere around that way. Yeah. And you get sort of you get in, you do what you're doing, and we're talking like milk crates. The decks are on like a couple of stacks of milk crates, rubbish everywhere, graffiti on the walls, the lot.
Ashtray overfilled.
No, yeah, it weren't even that, brother. It was just fag butts everywhere. It was all sorts.
The whole place was a fucking ashtray.
It was a squat. It was a squat, right? We're talking proper illegal squat.
Yeah.
And I'm playing there, and I get fucking some bird that's in the room next door. She's knocking on the door, and I'm kind of like, I'm like 17, 18, and she's going, "Have you got a light?" And I was like, back then I smoked and whatnot, and I was like, give it a light. And I realised she was fucking smoking crack.
Oh, my God.
What? I'm just like, do you know what I mean? I'm just like, that's not me, bruv. Do you know what I mean? It's like, that was a weird, I'm like, no, you can keep the lighter. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? I want it back. No. And it's like, oh, what's that smell? You know, just no. That was a weird thing.
Yeah.
We've had the usual getting raided, turn everything, hired, whatever. That's obviously the usual one. I think one of the Essex ones we did. Obviously you always get the it's gone off. Then you get someone ringing, you're off, blah blah blah.
Yeah.
It was the guy from Southend in the Tower Block Dreams. Was he in the Tower Block Dreams video or something? The film, the documentary thing he did.
Yes.
And he was always at the rig, and he kept tapping the rig or something to let him know he was there before he switched us off. Yeah. That kind of thing. That guy. You know about
in a radio station beef between different pirate radio stations.
And you get in serious threats down the phone, proper threats.
Mate, not just that. I've got to stop. When I first went on a station in Essex, and this might have even been before I'd met you, to be fair. I was only 16 or 17, and it was in a not very nice place, in a flat on the second or the first floor, with one way in, one way out. Option 2 would have been jumping off the balcony, which fuck that. And I was scheduled to I had a graveyard set. I think I was meant to be playing 12 till 2 on a Friday/Saturday. for some reason, I got moved to do 2 till 4 in the morning because somebody else was in town and they wanted to come down and do sort of a reminiscent kind of set. They was guys that used to be on the station. So I'm doing this set, and I know there's no one playing at fucking 4 in the morning. Like, no one's playing at 4 in the morning. Like, it's bad enough I'm playing at 2 till 4, right? So I'm there on my own, I'm doing my set, and I'm getting a knock at the door. It's, they made up some DJ name. It's DJ so-and-so. We're on next, let us in. And I'm like, something's not right here. There's no one playing after me. I've never fucking heard of you. It's not happening. Let me just check with management. So I'm making phone calls. This is whilst I'm doing a fucking live show, I might add. So tunes are playing and I'm trying to juggle everything. Yeah. So I'm trying to ring management, can't get through. All of a sudden, I start hearing banging at the door. And these guys, I looked out the little peephole on the thing. There's 3 guys standing outside. All of them have got their faces covered and they're trying to kick in the front door. So I'm like 16, 17 years old. I'm not particularly happy. To be honest, I'm shitting my pants thinking, fucking hell, if they get through this door, I don't know what's going to happen. I could lose all of my vinyl. I could get my head kicked in. I don't know what's going to go on. So I'm trying to ring management, finally got through to management, and they're like 45 minutes away. I'm like, fuck, what do I do? And they're saying, oh, hide some of the stuff, yeah? Hide some of the bits and pieces. So there I am trying to hide the fucking Technics and the mixer. I'm turning off the link box, and I'm trying to hide my vinyl and thinking, fuck, right, what's going to happen if they come in?
Hide a vinyl in an oven.
Yeah, that was the same place. That was the same place.
Yeah,
that was the same place. Yeah, where he got his vinyl melted because he turned the fucking oven on with his vinyl in it. But this door was on its last legs. The hinges are literally just about to come out the wall, and these guys are whack, 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 kicking this door in. And all I can do, as a young kid, is say, management's going to be here in a minute. You can talk to them and sort it out. Well, with that said, and with the door holding on just about long enough, they didn't get in, which I'm so grateful because I wasn't jumping off the balcony because I'd have broke my legs. And if I didn't, they might have come in and broke my legs.
Yeah, you're definitely not arguing over a set of decks.
Nah, not a 16, 17-year-old kid. Do you know what I mean? These were fully grown men that were clearly going to be doing something not very nice. And management turns up. They disappear. Management turns up. They look at the door. Jesus Christ, the door's about to come in. First thing they do is grab the microphone and tell the guys that's trying to kick the studio in, come back and see me now. And there I am with my vinyl. It's like...
I don't even need to. You don't even need to say who it is. I know exactly.
Yeah, I got me vinyl there, and I'm like, excuse me, Mr. Management, you couldn't take me home first. But then obviously they didn't come back, and that was like, yeah, just one of the stories. And another one that's the weirdest thing, just to sort of counteract your one, which isn't about drugs as such. It was on top of a tower block in somebody's front room. I go in, right, I'm still quite young. Let's do my radio show. I start doing my radio show. 15 minutes into it, I turn around and there's a family sitting on their sofa watching EastEnders. Yeah. And I'm kind of half standing in the way of the TV trying to do a show whilst they're watching it. Yeah. I'm trying to do a radio show here and you're, excuse me, I can't see Pauline Fowler having an argument with Martin or whatever.
I mean, yeah, do you know, there's a couple more things in there. You've said things like that. It's making me think. I had, what was it I did? There was even, most of them have all been about from when I was doing garage stations in the late 90s. There was one, I think I was in Enfield, and this girl's flat, and we were in the flat, and the decks were all set up in her kitchen counter, and she's like, I want to cook me dinner. And I'm like, yeah, exactly. And I'm like, it's sort of like, so I'm just taking a screenshot here, I don't know why.
Yeah. I charge
Then,
per picture, by the way.
yeah, yeah. I want you to sign it later.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's basically started cooking dinner, right? And like, the vinyl's going around, and she's gone and got, I need to get something out of the cupboard that's like above the decks, and she's got
I can
got
see
the
where this is
pasta
going.
and knocked the whole pasta on the deck. And I'm just like, what do you do? I mean, it's just like, sorry, someone's, you know, get on the mic, sorry, yes. And you try and say it in the most pirate radio voice. Yeah, yeah. Out to the studio crew, all the pasta gang, yeah.
Yeah. Gremlins in the studio. Gremlins. That was the.
Oh yeah, this was with Eruption. Was it 1013 in a tower block in Leytonstone?
Yeah.
And it was a tower block that was due to be knocked down, and there was maybe 2 or 3 floors out of this 20-story tower block that had people living on it, and obviously the floor that we had the studio in weren't one of them 2 floors, right? So they had I forget what it is it like they had the lift key or something like that gave you access to all the doors and
Girder key.
Yeah, and they had that, and we were up in this floor. It was like one above where someone else was living, and they were like, you know, going. It was literally a dead floor, squat, you know, like I said, same sort of thing. Toilet was smashed to bits. They did that so people wouldn't squat there, right? And it was all this sort of thing. And it was like graffiti all over the place, and we were in the kitchen. Done the show. Couple of weeks we've done the show there, and then come back home, and they went, oh, we're not going to be on next week. So I'm like, cool, finding a new studio. Didn't think anything of it. And then I'm sitting there watching the TV one weekend, and I'm like, it was quite a big demolition project, basically. Knocking this tower block down was a big thing. It made the like main news on like Saturday afternoon on BBC One or whatever. I was fucking in that tower block the week before. No one knew I was there, bro. They literally blew the fucking building up. I wouldn't, do you know what I mean? I'm like, we were on that floor last week. They wouldn't have known we were there. Like, what the fuck?
That's mental.
But yeah, mate.
We're painting a very bad picture when it comes to pirate radio here. And it was such a vibe. It was so good.
Yeah. You know, even like you met people that were ringing in all the time. You saw them at the rave the weekend. They're like, people would come up to you and like, oh, I'm blah, blah, blah. Like, there's a guy, a lot of that old school lot on Origin. There's a guy, Major in Chadwell Heath. Proper legend, proper safe geezer. I remember him all the time. He would shout every single show, and it was like it's just to say. And then you pop up into the rave, Scala or somewhere in King's Cross. Yeah. And like, I'm Major, and you're like, what? And you'd be like, yeah, I'm Major from Chadwell. Oh shit, you know. And it's like, then you met a new mate. Do you know what I mean? You met a new raving mate, and it's all of a sudden you have people like that all the time. Loads of people like that, you know. And I think, you know, there was a connection. Whereas now you're doing streaming. Don't get me wrong, that's a wicked thing, and the radio stations have evolved massively now. Yeah. And you know, all the stations we've been on, you know, like Rough Tempo and a few other stations out there as well. Like, you know, there's loads to mention. Obviously, I can't mention them all. That have evolved and become what they are now. And there's just a much more global platform for you. Yeah. However, I miss the fact that you could play on that radio. Yeah. Or you could be at a rave at the weekend. You could play at the rave, and then like the week later, someone messaging going, "You smashed it last week at that rave, blah blah blah, whatever." Yeah. And you know, there's the interaction, or even just saying hello to someone at the rave, whatever. You know. It's like these sorts of things. Like that's where the family comes from. That's where the drum and bass family is. Now that's great that you can then also get these links, you know, on the streaming, that you've got links in other countries, and that equally is good. But most people aren't going to get a chance to meet them people. No, and I think that's where there's a slight downfall in that. You know, that instant message from that person, or seeing them at the rave or whatnot, you know, you knew your following and your crowd was built on that radio from that area.
Yeah.
And I think that's one thing that there's a massive lacking of now.
And it's different. It was different, wasn't it? Like the vibe on pirate radio was completely different to what it is now. Like just, I don't know if it was the added thing that you wasn't meant to be doing it for one, that it was illegal. Like you were broadcasting and at any minute the DTI could come kicking in the door. So there's that risk factor, which was like, oh, this is a bit taboo. I shouldn't be doing this. I play on pirate. And pirate radio was a massive thing. It's a massive thing when I grew up. I used to listen to, what was the first stations I listened to? It might have been like Passion FM or something, which was an old garage station. Yeah. I remember listening to like MC Vapor sets and things like that before I even liked drum and bass, thinking pirate radio sounds amazing. That's 100% something I want to do.
But then that was another thing as well. It was limited to weekends.
Yeah.
Pirate radio was never 24/7. It wasn't 24/7 until
Friday to Sunday.
Within the last 20 years.
Yeah.
And even less, it wasn't every station that was like that. It's only now internet's come into play that's been allowed to happen. You know, that sort of happened. But yeah, a lot's changed, man.
It really has, and it's gone literally like that as well, isn't it? Like it feels like I was going to the record shop and going to get prepared to go to a Sunday set on Charge FM like a week ago, but it's not.
I used to talk of Sunday shows. I used to do a show on Origin, right? Big up Rumble and Chucky, right? I met them two guys and they're like lifelong friends since then. They did the show after me on a Sunday. We used to play a lot of nights, pure old school, Scala, together as one. A lot of things like that, you know, Scala or Bagley's and places like that in London. And I used to do the gigs in the evening. And I lived in Essex, and then Origin was North London.
Yeah.
And go home, you know, you'd be out all night partying, go home, sometimes sleep, sometimes not sleep, go and do my show at midday.
Yeah.
And it was, like I said, you'd get people listening in that were at the rave night before, still partying after parties and whatnot, and all that sort of thing. And like, I used to absolutely hate the mission of having to go and do it. But religiously, I did it every single weekend. And sometimes the shows were good, sometimes the shows were bad. Sometimes I stayed up there with Rumble and Chucky and, you know, I stayed up there for a little bit longer and we vibed out and whatever, and it was cool. But all of these sorts of things, unfortunately, have kind of died out.
Yeah.
With pirate radio dying out. I mean, not just for my own benefit, obviously these sort of connections that you have with people, especially now, you know, you're in, you're out, you might speak to the person very briefly after you or before you.
Yeah.
But it's short and sweet. And I think that's the difference. Like there's a lot changed in that. But in the other side of things, I think now, drum and bass scene is probably well, obviously not right this second, right this year, but drum and bass as a scene, the people involved in it, there's no moodiness. No. I spoke to someone a little while ago who a bit older than me and stepped away from drum and bass and whatnot, and they're like, how's drum and bass? Is it still moody? Referencing the late 90s.
Yeah.
I'm like, no, it couldn't be further from opposite to that.
Yeah.
You know, it's the biggest vibe right now. It's a family, no matter what style you listen to, drum and bass, oh, that's it, you're cool. Yeah. Straight away, everyone's sort of enclosed in that family, and I think that's a
less frowned upon as well.
Internet is probably,
as an actual scene, it's less frowned upon as well. Like you say, 15 years ago, you say you was into drum and bass, you was like, oh, well, drum and bass, what? Yeah. Now it's completely different. Like the market for it has evolved, and I don't know, you're getting more of what I would call sort of a uni crowd that would listen to drum and bass, and it's more generally accepted in all walks of life. You get drum and bass tunes on bloody car adverts and stuff like that. And Radio 1 and commercial artists are doing drum and bass tracks and whatnot. Whereas before, that wouldn't have necessarily gone down the same way 15 years ago.
Yeah. I mean, 20 years ago, 25 years ago, it was just not accepted at all.
Yeah.
It was a gang-led. I mean, I'm sure everyone's watched like the Terry Turbo thing on Netflix recently, you know, how it was, but it was like that.
Yeah.
You know, and I grew up in that scene. What he was sort of doing that documentary about, and it's so good listening to stuff like that. And the amount of people I see online bigging that up,
yeah,
and you know, massive respect to him. These things are all true. They did happen. A lot of things that he's mentioning that I've heard of over the years, all these stories and whatnot, and that's how it was.
Yeah, well, I know when I first went raving, the mood in the rave was completely different to what it was now. And that's just in, I'm coming up to nearly 20 years of doing it, maybe a little bit less, 18, 19 years or whatever. But even just in that time period, I've seen it going from moody as fuck to the complete polar opposite in that space of time. And what I see was the back end of it being moody. So obviously previous to that, it was even fucking worse. It's come a long
I remember my very early raves. I remember I went to One Nation 97, I think, showing me age again. As a young lad, thinking I was a proper bad man in a Moschino or Moschino shirt, you know, one of the repeated patterns. And I was proper excited to be able to go there. I was like, yeah, we're taking proper rave out of jungle. And I walked in there, and I remember I was there with my mate, and it was a different vibe. It weren't happy. Everyone could smoke in the club still. So it's still quite smoky everywhere. It was dark at times, and you sort of walk into a smoke-filled section of the rave, and all of a sudden you get a fucking dig in your back. I remember one particular time I could just smell people smoking Charlie.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I could smell it. You could just like smell this particular smell, and you walk through this area. And I stood there and I was like trying a little dance and whatnot, and I just remember this geezer behind me, and I sort of looked behind, and he was dancing with a girl. And he didn't like the fact I was standing there, and he just went bang, just jabbed me one right in my sort of kidneys.
Yeah.
And I was like, it was the first experience of something like that happening.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm used to happy hardcore. I was there with my white gloves.
Yeah.
High vis jacket on, and I've gone into this different thing with my Moschino on, and I'm like, I'm a little bad man, and I'm like, I was the most opposite end of being a bad man in the, you know, it's just like not the case at all. I've got proper bad men behind me just giving it, who's the fucking idiot, fuck off. Crack me one right in the back, and I'm just like
I'll go stand over there.
I'm gonna go with the security guard because it's you know what I mean? But that's how it was. And you know, you heard all these stories of people getting jacked in the raves, there was shootings in there. It was common for that to happen, shooting outside. Now, as I was saying, now it couldn't be more of a friendlier vibe, and everything's fucking what you expected it to be back then, which it should have been, which it still was, but not if you went to certain venues.
But it is, and it is for the better now, I believe. I mean, you can reach a wider audience now with the platforms that you can. Obviously, there's a hell of a lot more competition because of how easy it is to get your music to people. But again, that will help undiscovered people get discovered that might not have previously. And also, it builds more competition, which pushes people to be better and be innovators in doing other projects, doing other things, to be different. Because, well, if there's all these people that are now doing it, I need to do something that's going to set myself apart, which then could be the result of becoming a new fucking twisted individual, or a new Hazard, or these guys that were very much innovators of particular sounds, and will be, for me anyway, they will be remembered for that. Twista Individual was like, he was the guy. His old tunes, fucking like,
Yeah.
absolutely loved his stuff, like massively, and I like his stuff now as well. I do. Like, he will always hold a special place for me as one of my biggest influences, along with Hazard, which I'm sure Hazard's main influence on fucking loads of people. But them two guys there for me are just fucking.
So, I want to ask a kind of controversial question, and I don't want to make it sound like I'm darking off the current scene, because I'm not in any way, and I don't mean it like this. You look at, I think when we look at our era, our age group, we grew up exactly like you just said. There was a Twista Individual, there was a Hazard, there was a Clips, there was a, you know, Clips was my favourite. Definitely a lot of stuff we played. You know, there was certain artists of certain areas that you can always go, you know, Pendulum, people like that in the early days, Chasing Status in their early days, Sigma in their early days, all these kind of guys, they were changing drum and bass for the better. Now we're in a point 10, 15 years later, and again, I'm not saying that drum and bass is not as good as then or whatever. I'm just looking at it in a different perspective. What do you think about the fact that there's so many people involved in the scene? It's so much more open to the thing. There's not so many prolific artists. In 10 years' time, people are going to go back and go, at this point right now, they're going to pinpoint 5 or 6 names that they were there. Do you think that's a valid thing to say, or do you think that's just me getting old?
Well, obviously, you'll always look back with nostalgia, and it may hold higher regard now than what it actually was, because you're looking back with nostalgia. And when you look back at things, you tend to usually only look back at the positives of certain situations. And that could be a contributing factor to it. But also, is the fact that we're not going to be able to pick 5 or 6 names out of the crop of people that are making music now because there's not enough, or is it because there's more?
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to say.
Like, rather than it being secluded to particular artists, because we've got that bigger pool of people, it's a whole group of, you can't select individuals.
Rather than being 5 standout guys, there's 20 standout guys right now. Is that a good thing or a bad thing? I don't really know. I can't tell you if that.
Time will tell with that, I guess, when it comes to that. And I mean, we're only going off our opinions of who those guys were 15 years ago. You could speak to somebody else and they'll pull out 5 completely different names. I mean, you got your fucking Ed Rush and Opticals and people like that. There's a lot of guys that were pushing the envelope and doing stuff that was.
So maybe looking at this as a slightly different angle, being a bit more modern, using social media as a point to this, yeah? So would social media be the point where people stand out more now, rather than their productions? I'm crossing the line with a conversation here or not?
I'm not sure, really. I mean, it's just, everything's just evolving, isn't it? You need to bring more to the table now with everything.
Yeah. Okay.
Right. So we're back in after a little technology. The gremlins, technology failing us, just like a pirate radio show. Don't watch the technicals.
Like, to be fair, it was actually, I just needed a piss.
Yeah. Happens to the best of us.
It does. It happens when you get old. So what's happening?
So, what are we going to now? So, let's talk about some bookings, because I know you've played at some good places and maybe some bad places like the rest of us. But if you had to pick out maybe 1 or 2 of the best bookings you've ever done.
Mate, okay. There's a few, right? And lucky enough, I can say there's a few. There's a few for different genres that I've played.
Yeah.
So maybe the first time I played abroad, 2001.
Yeah.
Garage under the Mr. Wilson that we were talking about earlier. I did. I played. I don't know which order around it was, but I did Iron Apple. Played at Sun City, Castle Club, 1 month, and then a month later, I think it was the opposite way around. I played at in Kavos in Corfu for Trinity, Limelights Club. They were the first 2 gigs I'd done abroad, the same year, a month apart. They weren't particularly massive, but it was just the first time abroad. You remember that? Yeah. First time I played a drum and bass thing abroad was in Germany, in Bremen. I've never been back to Germany since.
You made an impression then.
I won't ever forget that. I was on a lineup with Zinc, Hazard, Shabba, Profile, Fantasy. Fantasy sorted it out. Where was it in? Halle 2, I think it was called. Hall 2, I think. I remember playing at that. That was the first place I played drum and bass in Europe. Again, early 2000s at some point. Funny little journey. I just remember getting the car back. It was about an hour and a half drive to the airport from the hotel back to the German airport. Yeah. With Shabba and Profile, all 3 of us falling asleep in the back seat. I remember Shabba giving me a lift home. Shabba. Out to Profile. Those were sort of early gigs I remember. Biggest gigs I did. Garage one. Sun City in, I don't know what year it was. 1998 maybe. Cardiff ice skating arena. Okay. Valentine's. And I've got the setup online actually. Basically, the DJ booth was up so high, you had to climb up 2 different long ladders, and these were like the flat wooden ones, the really long fucking wooden ladders. 2 of them up scaffolding to get to the decks. Now this is back when you got a record bag, right? I've got a record bag in one arm, like trying to cover enough. Back then, you always overcompensated for the set. You didn't have 1 hour's worth of tunes, you had 2. Yeah. Now, 2 hours worth of vinyl, bruv.
That plays a lot.
I'm like that, up a 18-year-old, fucking like that, trying to hold two drinks as well, because you ain't going back down again. Yeah. And I don't even know how I did it. I think I went up, brought the record bag up and come. Anyway, done that. I remember there was 4,000 people in the ice skating arena, garage. I had PSG, Kofi B and a couple of other guys. And I remember Norris the Boss Windross was playing after me and he was late because he was in Wales. Yeah. I got to play extra time. I did a set back to back with Dub Matt. It was a local guy and he was really popular. But we had his MC was Dread MC. You know the guy with My New Lane? Right. Yeah. Yeah. So he was on the set as well. I've still got the tape. I've actually got the tape from the tape pack on that, bro. Yeah. I should pull it out. Yeah, that's online. I know that's one of my favourite sets from back in the day. More recent, 2 sets. Jesus. Innovation in the Dam. I've done the opening set a couple of times recently. The last... Moddy's gonna laugh at me for this. I missed the last one. The one just gone. I missed it. I was meant to play and I missed it. Yeah. Hands up, it's my fault. We're not going to talk anymore about that. He covered that and he done well. Out to Fates as well. But the year before, myself and Reality, the first set of the weekend, Innovation in the Dam. So sick, man. And even I think the year before I did it as well. Big up Lloyd, out to Ollie, Moddy as well, all the Innovation gang each and every time. Jungle Dam, sets out there have been proper. like just vibes. Anywhere in another country, for some reason, when you've got English people in another country watching you do the same thing you do, do you know what I mean? It's just different, bro.
Yeah.
But the one that really has stood out for me recently was Westfest 2 years ago. I did Jungle Mania stage last year. That was wicked. First set there, but the year before that was that 2018.
Yeah.
I opened the One Nation stage there, right, bruv. Sometimes you get them sets and it's just like, I'm never going to forget. And because you walk in and it's empty, and then within 5 minutes of that stage being open, the whole of Westfest, there's no other drum and bass playing. Normally they've got drum and bass on the main stage, and that's like God knows how many thousand.
Yeah.
This room, bruv, you just see a sea of people coming in like that. Who was it? I can't remember. Clip went to me. He messaged me. He went, bruv, that's things dreams are made of.
Yeah.
Because he's done it. And I just thought, all right, cool. And I'd done it, and I messaged him afterwards, and I was like, bruv, you know, bruv, it's just probably one of the best sets I've ever played. And funnily enough, I did the set with Carousel.
Yeah.
Big up Carousel each and every time. And even now, I look at that set and I'm just like, it gives me goosebumps to be able to do that, to play to thousands of people, and the crowd reaction is just nuts, man. It's like, I dropped some of your first tunes from your album there, didn't I? Dropped Big Man.
I've got
reaction on that fucking tune, bro.
Yeah, it's sick. It sounded like it was.
I played it before you did.
Yeah, you played it before I did, because I didn't have any bookings. You was playing them tunes, and like just hearing the recording, it sounded fucking wicked. It really did sound good.
Do you know when it's like as a DJ, you sort of look at it when you're a kid and you think, I wish I could do that one day.
Yeah.
Get to do it, man. And like, you know, sometimes it sounds a bit silly, but I'm just being humble, straight up. And it's like you get opportunity to do some things, and that's what you've always dreamed of doing as a DJ. Get a chance to do it, and brother, that's worth its weight in gold. Don't you know?
You have these goals in mind. Like when I first started doing it, my first goal was, I want to play house parties with my friends. And then it went from house parties to, I want to start playing on pirate radio. Right, I now want to start doing bookings. Okay, I now want to have a vinyl release. And you just work your way up the ladder doing these things. And each time you realise that particular goal, it's in no mean feat a massive achievement. And it shouldn't be taken as anything less. But of course, because we are who we are and we do what we do, you're like, what's the next goal? I want to achieve something else. I want to do something more. And maybe it takes a shine off it in the moment, perhaps, and you look back, and in actual fact, some people will come up to you that don't do those things and go, fucking hell, man, like what it must feel like to play in front of all these people, what it must feel like to have your tune released on vinyl and things like that. And you think, actually, when I was fucking 15, 16 years old, first starting, that was a dream. It really was.
You don't realise the dreams come true. This is going to sound so corny, man, but you don't realise the dream come true when it happens until someone comes out to you, and then all of a sudden you're like, fuck.
Yeah.
I'm not in any means bigging myself up. And one of my mates said to me, bro, have you made it? And I was like, nah, not. Still doing the same things that I do, still going and party the same way I partied however many years ago, whatever. You still do all these things because you still just are the same guy.
Yeah.
You're the same guy. You haven't changed. Nothing's... Bruv, you're on low down deep, for fuck's sake.
A few more grey hairs. That's
you still got a few more grey hairs. But you know, you've got to the point where all these years, you know, you and me, we've spoken all these things, and you know, you've pushed your music, and you've had times we've spoken, and you've gone into points of despair.
Yeah.
Why is this happening? You know, and we've had the chat, and you know, these things happen, but you've persevered. There's so many people in the scene that have persevered, and don't need to name names at the minute, but there's guys that are a lot older than me, and they've only just broken through. in the last 2-3 years, right? And that's just so cool, because the point of that is like everyone will get their chance.
Yeah. People have got different journeys as well, don't they?
Everyone will get 5 minutes if you keep believing in what you do. If you're good at what you do, you believe in that, don't stop. You know, and I think that's the same. You know, you've done it. I've had the opportunities for myself. You know, there's various other people surrounding us. I think they've had that chance as well, and I think that's a good thing for the youngers out there. Sometimes people might ask me, "Oh, bro, how are you still doing it now? You know, what advice can you give?" You just got to keep going, be humble. You know, there's the standard shit that I think you are. I'd like to think I am.
You got to enjoy it as well.
Nice guys, you're humble, you enjoy what you're doing,
yeah.
You keep going, you've got to try and reinvent yourself all the time, all these kind of things, and that's cool.
It's a long process, and the journey's different for everyone. Obviously, some people it can take a lot longer to reach somewhere where they want to be than others. That is just what it is. Some people's journeys are longer than others, and some people can maintain where they get to longer than what others can. And from what I gather, and I've had this conversation previously with other people, getting to where you want to be is one hell of a fucking journey, and it's really difficult to do. But once you're there, it's even more difficult to maintain. So you can get to being and I'm not saying that I am in any shape or form. I definitely believe that I'm nowhere near that. But these top tier guys that have 15, 20 years to get to being a top tier guy would probably argue they've got to work harder now than what they did on the way up, because of where they are, because of what's at stake and what's expected of them.
Yeah, I could agree with that.
It's one thing getting there, it's another thing staying there.
Yeah, it's like your first album is one thing, your second album's got to be better than the first.
Of course, yeah.
Yeah, or you're only as good as your last release.
Well, that seems to be very, very true.
Unfortunately, music's so far away at the minute, you've got to be keeping that standard high all the time.
Yeah, you really do.
There's only a few of us, and I'll count myself involved in that as well, because I don't release as much music as I bloody should. I haven't released any drum and bass for a long time, or barely, or a couple of releases and good for nothing, like on the albums.
Yeah.
But music-wise, drum and bass hasn't been my focus in the last 5 to 10 years. But luckily, I've been able to get through with the DJing. Yeah. Whereas now, it's all about producing.
Yeah.
Always, you know, and you need to be producing to get forward.
Yeah.
That's probably the best bit of information you can give to any new.
That's the reason I started making music in the first place, if I'm honest. I made music because it was, how am I going to get myself in a position to be able to get more bookings? And back then I felt, well, I need to be making music. I need to be able to bring something else to the table, which no one else can. And obviously a way of doing that is to make your own music, because no one else can have that if you're the only one that's got it. Do you know what I mean? If like the particular tunes that get signed, well, you can play them 6 months before they're even given to the record label for the chance to be signed. So you're bringing your own unique thing, your own stamp to your sets that no one else can do.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like Big Man is a prime example. I played that at West Festival over a year before that came out. I mean, these days, a tune sitting tight for a year is not really heard of.
Yeah.
15, 20 years ago, we would wait God knows how long for a track that was rolling around on dub.
I'm still waiting now for some of those Hazard tunes to come out. So Hazard, if you see this, I'm still waiting for some of them tunes to come out that you've been holding on to for 10 years.
Hazard's a different story, but do you remember, like, that's the thing, you go into the record shop, we go back to record shops, but you go into the shop, you go to Greg, play that you pull out a tape or a CD, and you go, play that at whatever track. What's that tune? And everyone will be like, oh, yeah, that's a bad tune. It's like, no one knows what the fuck it is. Or they'll be like, yeah, that's not coming out for another year.
Yeah.
Like, what?
And that feeling when you, with that feeling when you get the vinyl and he's like, yeah, I just got these in, here's the latest promos. You put it on, you're like, oh my God, that's that tune. That's that tune I've been after for fucking ages. There it is. Right, I'm taking it.
I'll never forget this one time. There was a guy that come in Sound Zone, and he was just so, he was a proper Essex raver. We could just tell a mile off. He was one of the lads, do you know what I mean? He was like, he come in and he just went in, he went, mate, he goes, I'm not even a DJ, I just really want this tune. And me and Greg looked at each other and we were like, this is trust. And we looked at each other and was like, all right.
Yeah.
These lads here, all right. And he's gone, he sung it and he just went, and I'm not singing it, I can't do it. He instantly knew what it was, right? And it was Modified Motion, Bloody Knuckles.
Yeah.
And it was like, that was probably the biggest selling tune of that time. Big up Moddy. And it was just, this guy was so excited to buy that tune and that.
Yeah.
And it just made his day to get that. He didn't even know what it was called. That was the funny thing.
He just knew how it went.
Little things like that made his day, mate. And he was just like, I'm not even a DJ. I just want it on vinyl because I love the tune so much. Those sorts of things are definitely something I miss. But yeah, you're right about having your own music to play.
I love it. I love like, and you may relate to this because not only with your producing, but your artwork and things like that you do in your graphic design. It's nice to have a creative outlet that holds literally no bounds. So you can do whatever you want. There is no right or wrong because you're just creating something that you want to create. And for me, like, that's probably part of what keeps me fucking sane, to be honest. Being able to do that. I think if that was taken away from me, I might have a few issues. Which
I think if you look at all of the people, the most creative people in history, the most creative ones are not normal. And quite frankly, I don't like normal people. I despise normal people because if you're normal, you're boring.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you've got something different about you, then you're interesting. I mean, there's different levels of different.
There is very true.
A normal person's boring, quite frankly, and someone that's got something different, whether it's they are good at cooking, or whether they're good at making music, or whether they're good at artwork, or whether they can kick a ball 100 times.
Yeah.
Whatever, that's different. As opposed to, do you know what I mean? And that brings something new to the table. And I think everyone out there should try and have that about themselves. Otherwise you become a boring bastard and that's it.
Yeah. And why the fuck not? I mean, yeah, like I said, for me, with music, it's there to keep me sane, I think, without it. And I know you've said it to me a few times. Jesus Christ, some of them tunes you've made, you all right? You got something wrong with you? What's going on?
You're just, the sound of you just like the most aggiest. And I'm like, you're not an aggy guy. You're not an aggressive person.
That's me having that outlet to be that aggy person to allow me to not be particularly aggy. And well, unless I play football, and that's a little bit different. But
yeah, you can't really say that after the amount of injuries you just had.
Yeah. Well, it's my own fault. I probably deserved it because I probably injured somebody else. So it's karma coming back round to get me.
Yeah, that's it, man. But yeah, I think music is probably the best outlet for anyone's, especially like if you look at things like right now, we were going back to people's productivity has gone up through the roof because of lockdown. Mm-hmm. That's a massive good point of people being able to release their sort of restrictions in life, and issues. People were able to come up with new lyrics or spit bars and whatnot and write new stuff because of their problems that they faced at the right time.
That doesn't just filter into the production side of things. That goes to the people listening to it as well. I know for me, other music that I listen to and listen to growing up, it takes you to a different place.
It can. Mate, I'd be dead if it weren't for music.
Yeah.
Probably, I don't know why I'd be dead, but I probably would be.
It's just more than likely without it, then something would have happened. But yeah, no, it does. Like it just means so much, and maybe that's why now it's kicking on, and we're over the initial bullshit of everything, and perhaps music will be something that will come out of this stronger and meaning more to a lot of people than maybe it did before.
Well, I think lockdown, as much as it's probably, obviously, it's the worst thing that's ever happened in our lifetime, obviously. I think a lot more people out there need to take a little bit more seriously about what it is. I'm not going to go on one about that, but I definitely think I've taken a lot away from this situation for the better. I've learned a few things. I've accepted people. I've accepted situations for what they are.
Yeah.
You know, I've accepted ways of working with my day job. Massive amounts of stuff's changed for the better. Productivity's gone up. All these kind of things, you realise what sort of benefits, you know, the opportunity to be able to work all the way through this has been a massive fucking help for me. It's not been the same for everyone.
No.
I'm lucky. You've not had it easy. I know you ain't, you know, and stuff like that. And things like, you know, all the time, all the way through it, the only one consistent I can genuinely say has been music.
Yeah.
A consistent, solid thing that I've always been able to turn to when I need it. Obviously, like your partners, and that goes without saying, but family and whatnot, you know, that's different. But music has been one thing when all the way through this, the world's biggest problems happened in our lifetime, music has always been there.
Yeah.
Whatever way you wish to accept that or which be creative upon it, that is something that's there, and you should never let go of that, I think, for people.
No, definitely. And it will help people in shit situations. It will relate to people and it will guide people through certain things. And that's all styles of music. There's, you know, I don't just listen to drum bass. I listen to a lot of different music, and I was brought up on a lot of different music. And there's particular tunes, which another thing I like about music, I can listen to a tune that I listened to when I was 12 years old, and it takes me back to being a 12-year-old in that particular moment when I heard that tune.
Yeah.
What else can do that?
No,
not a lot else that can do that. Perhaps maybe a certain smell or a certain taste. But yeah. Yeah, but you know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know. You go.
It literally does.
Yeah. There isn't much that can put you back in a particular moment, and music is definitely something that can do that, which is not something that's going to get lost anytime soon. In fact, I think it's only going to increase.
We're getting seriously deep right now.
We are. We're getting on a deep one. We've gone from pirate radio to fucking dodgy studios to being music philosophers. Who knew?
Yeah, but this is what this is here for, man. It's just a couple of guys that know about music and or claim to know about music.
Yeah, I know fuck all really, to be honest.
A few bits and pieces, we're always learning. But yeah, we're talking about some shit about music. And I think any other podcast you do with anyone else, you're going to get their angle. They'll probably look at me fucking basically just waffling on.
But this is what it is. There is no script. There is no set pathway. It is literally a conversation that hopefully the people listening to this now will enjoy, and they'll pick up bits and pieces that they can relate to and refer to their own experiences because of it. But taking up loads of your time tonight, we'll look to kind of wrap this up. But yeah, so to end the podcast and everything, we've got to talk about your T-shirt you're wearing and what that represents. And obviously, we've referred to it a few times during this podcast. So basically, the label that we was talking about that I'm a part of, Good for Nothing Records, you are also a part of.
Exactly
and
that.
We're now working together. It's not for the first time either. We touched on it earlier on with other projects, which I won't go into too much detail about them. Let's talk about what we're doing now and what we've got coming up. But I'll let you
Okay, you putting it on me to remember. Okay.
Yeah, mate, I'm testing you. I'm testing you. You on the ball or not?
Of course, I know these things. I don't know the dates, but yeah. So yeah, you're right. It's a good enough thing. A label you started 11 years ago.
Yeah, long time.
As you said, we worked on another label project together. Nothing long.
Yep.
Roughly at a similar time. But yeah, so the label's basically focusing on predominantly jump up music. And we've gone past the 10-year period, which we've done the two-part album last year. This year we're releasing a lot of new artists, some really, really good artists. Obviously a long-standing artist, Spow, we released at the start of the year. Then Fanatics, Belgian guy, absolutely smashing it. Big up to Fanatics each and every time. Then we've got another Belgium link up along with a UK link up from Fuelized, who's also part of the label as well. He's helping us out over in Belgium. And then Sam Fadix. With Blinded. That was the previous release. And then next release coming up now is going to be out at the end of September, 25th. Juno exclusive, which is the Chemicals EP.
You done well.
This one's a little bit different.
You done well to remember the date because I didn't.
So basically this is Fadix featuring Neil Bad Boy.
Yeah.
So it's probably the most musical release Good for Nothing's had.
Yeah.
It's varying in different styles. There's a bit of Foghorn in there. There's a bit of Mackie G kind of vibe tune in there. There's a Liquid tune, which is the first, I believe.
Yes.
It's a 5-tracker. It's really, really good EP. Really pleased with how they're sounding. Big up to Sam.
Very talented guy as well. Very
talented. That's coming out on the 25th. And next up, we've got the part 2 of Fanatics EP. Again, some wicked tracks on that. Then the next one after that is a new guy from Belgium, a guy called Flynn. Very young, I believe. Was he early 20s, I believe?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, very, very talented guy. He's stood out with some really solid tracks there. Wicked release from him. Then we've got another little album project at the end of the year. And then we're going to see what happens. You might see another little production from myself jumping in on that. Yeah. Maybe a single from yourself as well, I believe.
Yeah, possibly.
Squeeze that one in, yeah. And then 2021, who knows? Like we kind of, as we said earlier, we don't want to go too nuts with things because we don't know. We want to be able to put music back in the club, basically. Yes. But yeah, there's a lot coming. There's a lot of good music out there, a lot of good producers, and we're trying. There may even be a little playlist come up as well.
Yeah, definitely.
Playlist come up as well. There's a talk of that. But yeah, there's a lot coming. Good for Nothing.
Yeah, we're working, and it made 100% sense to have you involved in the label with me because we discussed most things label-based previous to that anyway. And, you know, we've worked on projects before that worked out quite well. So, yeah, I'm very, very pleased that you're running the label with me. So, big up, bruv.
Thanks, man. Thanks for getting me involved.
And I'm looking forward to going forward with the releases and seeing where it goes next year. Fingers crossed we get our fucking raves back because I know everyone listening to this want raves back as soon as possible. And fingers crossed that's something that we can do in the future. Yeah. But on that note, I'll end the podcast here. I'll let you get back to your evening.
Cool.
I appreciate you taking the time out to have a chat with me, and I'm pretty certain we'll probably do this again at some point, 100%, and we'll chat more about certain subjects and experiences and go from there.
Cool. Thanks for having me down, man. Big up.
Big up, brother. Take care.